Is Rachel Maddow a Nazi? This is a serious question. I'm not talking about how people have called her and other people feminazis because of her haircut or certain views she's expressed. I do want to bring that up because, for one, feminism is the exact opposite of Nazism. So feminists are not Nazis, they're anti-Nazis. And Rachel Maddow is, to the extent that she's a feminist, an anti-Nazi, to the best of my knowledge, which is why I'm asking this question, because I'm surprised to have to ask. She is actually the one who educated me on the fact that the Nazis 100 years ago tried to take over America and came really close to succeeding in taking over America by having bought a bunch of congressmen, plans to kill a bunch of other congressmen, institute martial law, infiltrate the military and stuff, and take over America. That was a Nazi plan that they succeeded in getting the congressman that they bought to spew Nazi propaganda, which allowed them to taxpayer-funded print as many copies of that and send those quotes to Americans as much as they wanted. I learned all this from Rachel Maddow, which is why I'd be shocked and surprised to hear that she's a Nazi. But she was on the radio talking about her new book, Prequel, and the podcast she makes called Ultra, which is explaining that whole history. But the reason she would call the book prequel, I would think, is because she's calling out and identifying the current Trump coups and attacks on democracy as the current attempt of Nazis to take over America. Now, the reason I'm asking, is she a Nazi? And not a feminazi, because again, those are the opposite of Nazis. I did want to point out that while TikTok and other platforms prevent you from calling even actual Nazis, people have called feminists Nazis, called them feminazis, called us feminazis for 40 years, and no one gives them any blowback for that because they're the actual Nazis. And the point being that Rachel Maddow identifies the actual German Nazis who had infiltrated America and then titles her book Prequel, as if the prequel to the current Trump attempt to take over America. Maybe she has some other reference to it, prequel to the World War II or prequel to something else. I thought it meant she was able to identify the current Putin-led attacks on our democracy and other democracies through Trump here and Bolsonaro and Orban and Netanyahu, other people in other countries, as the Nazis. And that in identifying them as that she has a great platform for calling them out. Unfortunately, I watched a recent video made by her just today or yesterday in which she starts the whole thing with a disclaimer about, well, only the original Nazis were Nazis. Nobody else is Nazis. It's like, are you being the person who's the closest to helping all of America and the world identify the terrible Nazi threat that's posed to us in Ukraine and Israel and here in America, uh, and exposing it and calling people to actually act accordingly, and yet you pull back from the crucial moment of identifying this is who they are and this is what the problem is? Does that make you one? Is that similar to Joe Biden, calling out Trump as Putin's puppy, but he hasn't put Putin's puppy in the pound? Are they Nazis by being the ones who were supposed to be opposing the Nazis and are just not finishing the job? So, yeah, it would be a surprise, and I hope it's not true that maybe I'm just misunderstanding her perspective or the reason why she called her book Prequel. But I'm afraid that we're dealing with Nazis, not just in the obvious sense, the Nazis in the Republican Party, but we're dealing with the Nazis on our side. They're supposed to be on the side of humanity, that are just not doing their job and being Nazis in that way. I think we need AOC for president next year. I think Biden's only redeeming pathway is to, and only American pathway is to endorse her or some other real progressive who hasn't made these mistakes of not putting Trump in jail and not stopping Putin's plans, both in the world and here in America. So we need somebody who's going to protect America, to do the job of the president, protect America from these foreign and Nazi threats, and call them out for what they are. Any celebrity can do a good job doing it, better than our options so far as I can tell. But we need to go ahead and call for that and work on that and have somebody who's actually willing to call out these Trump-Putineers and Nazis for what they are, Nazis, and stop them in every possible way we have. And we have plenty of good, legal ways of stopping them, putting them away in jail, removing them from office. We might need to come up with some new ways to remove them from office in the case of the Supreme Court, but we can do it. We just have to actually start doing it. Thank you, and thanks fairies and everybody for, I don't know what the colors are on this, if this is going to show up in my video, but it looks really cool on my screen right now. And anyway, thanks for joining the Pillar Revolution, Fair Liberation Front, and let's select AOC or somebody good in 2024. Thanks. And let's end the Nazis. And please, Rachel Maddow and other people who have platforms, call them out if you know that's what they are.